Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike. And fam, welcome back to Big Mike's Big Universe. This is the series where we take a look at and discuss the latest happenings in the world of UFOs or UAPs and in astronomy in general. Now, it's been a while since our last episode, but today we're back with two developments in the Congressional UAP Investigation story. Now, it's been a long time since we had a discussion about this. So, to start things off, I'm going to give a brief recap of the story so far, and then we'll be looking at two news stories. We're going to be looking at the Republican representative from Florida, Paulina Luna, and what she said in a recent interview about her involvement in both the investigation and the hearing. Then after that, we're going to be looking at a very brief interview the Democratic representative from Florida, Jared Moskowitz, gave to ask a poll on the next UAP hearing. After we discuss each one of these, I'll give you some of my thoughts on them as well. Before we get into the summary, because all of these stories today are related to politics, I just want to throw up a quick disclaimer. Just because I mention or discuss a politician here does not mean I agree, condone, support, or endorse their politics, opinions, or views. The same is true of any political party I may mention. I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Libertarian, and I'm not a member of the Green Party. I just identify as a partyless leftist. But anyway, none of this should really matter because my channel is not a political channel. For those unfamiliar with the Congressional UAP Investigation story, I'll give a brief summary. Back in June, there was a whistleblower named David Grusch, and he came forward with the claim that the United States government has a secret UAP recovery program. And for those who are unfamiliar with the terminology UAP, it's meant to replace UFO, and it's also meant to cover other types of situations or occurrences, such as USOs, which are unidentified submerged objects. And not only did Grusch allege that the United States has recovered crashed ships, but also bodies, which he referred to as non-human biologics. He also stated that the government has used threats of violence to keep people quiet, and that the US government has even had people killed to keep them silent. He made these complaints and more to the United States Inspector General. Now, to vastly oversimplify and to cut this story short, some members of Congress took a strong interest in this situation, and the House Oversight Committee held a hearing on UAPs in which Grusch and two other whistleblowers testified before Congress about the UAP situation. Now again, this is a very brief summary that does not even begin to do it justice. But I followed this situation closely while it was happening, and I will put a link to a playlist of all my videos on this subject in the description below if you would like to get a much more in-depth recap of the story. And my videos on the subject follow all of the major events, from Grusch's very first interview with News Nation to the congressional hearing. Now on to our first story, Representative Luna's experience.
So I got Men in Blacked. I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's crazy. I can tell you based on my investigations, not in a classified setting, that I absolutely believe that there is things that are advanced technologies not of human origin.
Representative Paulina Luna, a Republican member of Congress from Florida and also a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, which has been both hosting the hearings on UAPs and investigating the claims, recently went on the Grant Mitt podcast. On the podcast, he mentioned, after a classified meeting with Air Force whistleblowers, she absolutely believes that the aircrafts they and others have described are of non-human origin. In doing this, she told about her experience visiting Eglin Air Force Base in the days leading up to the congressional hearing. For those unfamiliar with this incident, essentially she, Representative Tim Burchett, and Matt Gaetz had traveled to Eglin Air Force Base after being invited to speak with a whistleblower. There, they were stonewalled once they arrived and had met with a great deal of resistance. In her appearance on the podcast, she opened up a bit more about the experience, more than what was previously stated. She described herself as being Men in Blacked, first by the Pentagon officials who tried to cancel the visit, and then by CIA agents who for no apparent reason were shadowing their meeting. Being a member of Oversight, we follow up with whistleblowers, and we can also conduct our own investigations, she told Mitrelena. As a result of her experience with this investigation, she told Mr. Luna, I can tell you, based on my investigations, not in a classified setting, that I absolutely believe there is things that are advanced technologies, not of human origin. Representative Luna then went on to tell a story about the visit to the Air Force Base. We coordinated the meeting. The Pentagon tried to initially cancel the first one. We got it back on the books. We show up there and we get in, and the base commander tried to basically tell us that we didn't have authorized clearance to look into and speak to some of the witnesses. She went on to exclaim, "You don't tell Congress we don't have the authorized clearance, especially members of House Armed Services Oversight and Judiciary." She got into an argument with the base commander, Luna said, and while the meeting was going on, he took off on leave. Which never happens with a delegation going to a military base, she added. There were also attendees at the meeting who Luna was pretty sure were from the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, which is an unusual occurrence. Why would an intelligence agency need to be there on a meeting for whistleblowers? She asked. While on the podcast, Representative Luna was asked by Mr. Luna, have you received classified information? Yeah, but I can't talk about that, she replied. She was also asked about her stance on the existence of aliens prior to becoming a member of Congress. And when she clarified, I wouldn't call them aliens. I really like what Grusch calls them. He says they're interdimensional beings, and he's very specific about that. They're not necessarily a biological entity from another planet per se. She was also asked about her view on the stigma of UAPs and how it's seemingly gone away in recent years. When I was stationed at Portland Air Guard Unit a number of years ago, I remember there was an incident that occurred. And when the pilots came back, I asked one of them what he thought it was, and he couldn't really talk about it, she recounted. He didn't want to because the stigma that the military has it that you're crazy. But we're seeing that with especially technology that we have, even your iPhone, for example, you can record things and it's not going to be classified. We hope that more people come forward, she added. To conclude, she started talking about the irony of how this movement in Congress is bipartisan, and yet other government agencies seem to be keen on blocking progress, she stated. She said, if Congress is writing the bills to fund these programs, yet we don't have authorized access and insight into it, then that's not necessarily something that happens in a free country, right? So we continue to push. So now I want to share my thoughts on this Luna interview, and I want to touch on 4 points. First, I want to talk about what happened at the Air Force Base. If there was nothing going on, why the resistance? Why all of the odd behavior? Why the CIA agents? If there is nothing to hide, why not simply comply with what's going on, as is normal protocol in those situations? But there was, in fact, something that happened there. And Gates eventually did get to see it. And when he testified at the congressional hearing, he described it. Now, this clip is about a minute or so long, so it's a bit on the long side, but please bear with it.
And we did meet with one member of the flight crew who took the image. The image was of something that I am not able to attach to any human capability, either from the United States or from any of our adversaries. And I'm somewhat informed on the matter, having served on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years, having served on the committee that oversees DARPA and advanced technologies for several years. When we spoke with the flight crew, and when he showed us the photo that he'd taken, I asked why the video wasn't engaged, why we didn't have a FLIR system that worked. Here's what he said. They were out on a test mission that day over the Gulf of Mexico, and when you're on a test mission, you're supposed to have clear airspace, not supposed to be anything that shows up. And they saw a sequence of 4 craft in a clear diamond formation for which there is a radar sequence that I alone have observed in the United States Congress. One of the pilots goes to check out that diamond formation and sees a large floating, what I can only describe as an orb, again, like I said, not of any human capability that I'm aware of. And when he approached, he said that his radar went down, he said that his FLIR system malfunctioned, and that he had to manually take this image from one of the lenses, and it was not automated in collection as you would typically see in a test mission.
So was that why they were given such a hard time? I honestly don't have an answer, but I wouldn't be surprised. The second point I want to bring up is the terminology used here to refer to aliens. She referred to them as interdimensional beings. And this is very much consistent with what Grusch called them from the very get-go. In his News Nation interview, he was very careful to avoid calling them aliens. Instead, he called them interdimensional beings, and sometimes non-human biologics. Another point I want to bring up here is how she talked about how the stigma on UAPs, UFOs, or aliens has been diminishing over time. And that's actually something I've noticed myself as well. So back in the 90s, I was very much, even as a child, very much fascinated by UFOs. The idea was exciting. But I noticed that people who talked about it were often labeled as crazy, a nut job, a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. And that's pretty tame, to be honest. Now, over time, this has become less and less. And then today, actually, you can still see it a bit, but overall, many people feel more comfortable talking about the situation now. And the fear of being stigmatized has greatly diminished. And I think that's something that definitely needs to happen. And I'm glad it's headed in that direction where we can talk about our experiences, no matter what these things may be. Listen, I don't know if they're aliens, I don't know if they're interdimensional beings, but something is definitely happening. It might be natural, it might be something man-made, or it could be aliens, or as David Grusch and Representative Luna called them, interdimensional beings. That's up for debate. However, what's not up for debate is that these things do exist. And so in order to fully understand them and to fully, protect our pilots and both our military pilots and our civilian pilots, we need to better understand what they are. And we can't really do that if we can't have an open and frank discussion about them. And in order for that to happen, the stigma has to go away. And it is. And the last point I want to make here, before moving on to the next story, is Luna's last remarks. How she talked about how if Congress isn't allowed to look into the things they're funding, it's not really a free country. And that's something that's been sticking out to me this whole time throughout this entire situation. Who has the power to tell the government they can't look into something or to block them from doing something? And if they truly do have that power, then what's the point of our government? Who's really calling the shots there? I don't know. I'm getting too far into conspiracy theories with this, but it's there. It's there. The resistance is there. It's for all to see. Now, the cause of it is very much up in the air. Who's exactly behind the scenes pulling the strings? That's anybody's guess. But the resistance is there, and that's something that's chilling to think about, fam. The other story I want to discuss today is what Representative Moskowitz told Ask a Paul. It's a very short story, but quite a powerful one. After casting his weekly vote, Florida Democratic Representative Moskowitz was on his way to catch a flight when Ask a Poll approached him with the following question. I was just told by UAP caucus co-chair Tim Burchett that you had good thoughts on where to, maybe, hold the next UAP hearing. Moskowitz replied, we did get some locations in the classified briefing that are fascinating. So there's talk about maybe going to some of those places, but very unknown at the moment. He then went on to discuss a bit about what could be talked about at the next hearing. I think the claims that perhaps the Inspector General found some validity in David Grusch's claims. Those are the ones I want to follow up with. He told Ask a Poll before leaving. And that's the end of the story. And so now I want to give my thoughts on this. And honestly, despite the fact that it's such a short story, this is the one I'm really excited about. So the first thing here I want to talk about is the hearing. Ever since the congressional hearing, there's been a lot of excitement over the next one. Now, this one is going to be a field hearing, it looks like, but the exact location isn't known yet. But whatever location it is, it's said or it's believed to be a location given by David Grusch to the House Oversight Committee's members during a private meeting. Now, I don't have a lot of hopes that they'll actually find something, because on the one hand, this is public knowledge that this is something that's going to happen. So should anything even exist, it would be likely gone before anybody even gets there. Because this has been months ago. This has been talked about for months and months and months. Now, the one caveat is that in Grusch's story, if I'm not mistaken, in one of Grusch's stories, he talked about there being a vehicle that is too big to move. So I am excited, but I don't have high hopes for this. The second point I want to discuss is the fact that there are claims that the Inspector General has found some validity in UFO whistleblower David Grusch's claims. And I'm going to be real with you, fam. This has my absolute attention. What particular claims was it that Grusch made? Is it his claims in general, or is it a specific claim? Because could it be the government's hiding something and that's taking people out or silencing people? Okay, that's definitely believable. Could it be that there is non-human life? That actually what really interests me here. You know, the government doing shady stuff? Okay, you know, all governments do shady stuff, so, you know, nothing out of the ordinary there. But the fact that there could be non-human life forms or advanced technology that, you know, came from another dimension, another planet, what have you, that's absolutely fascinating. And I'm continuing to monitor the situation and see if anything else could come out. In the past, I've tried to do a deep dive on the Inspector General. There's nothing. I could find nothing on the guy online. So make of that what you will. But I'm going to be closely following this situation. And should anything come out, I will definitely make an update video. This is something I'm very passionate about. And this is something I hope that I can make another video about soon. But this is one of those types of series that I have to wait for something to happen first before I can make a video. But it is something I do enjoy making a video about. So with that, all that said and done, I'm going to call it here. And hopefully I'll see you all again real soon for another episode of Big Mike's Big Universe. Special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job doing my art. A special thanks to all my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it. Feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. And if you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!